Shamsi Tabriz, and he's one of these outrageous guys with kind of droopy moustache and a patched robe and strange, enigmatic things that he says. And Rumi is also giving the khutbahs and is a great alim and wa'iz, is starting to hang out with this kind of new age hippie. That's kind of outrageous. That sort of upsets everybody's expectations. Maulana, why are you hanging out with that guy? But there's something between them which we will never really be able to know, but it's something to do with the alchemy of hearts, which is to do with what we call the virtue of sidq. A friend in Arabic is sadiq, because you're true with him. You're not keeping up layers of falsehood and your own projection of who you are, the way we do nowadays, obsessed with putting up an image to the world because we're afraid that there's not much inside. Then it was like the opposite. People didn't have much. These were poor people, poor culture. But what they did have were extraordinary souls, and their great interest, apart from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, was in discovering other souls. The majlis was where it was at, seeing different forms of human luminescence and feeling the heart palpitate in the presence of different sorts of people. This is the tradition of the Shahid that the Sufis have, that one of the greatest signs of Allah in creation is the existence of the arwah. What is stranger in the material world than the fact that we can perceive the material world? That's really weird. That blows the mind. And even consciousness is not a scientific category. We don't really know what it is. And this is really of interest to traditional human beings. A sign of God is the existence of one's own consciousness and the consciousness of others. This isn't some kind of Cartesian thing. Oh, the only thing I know about is that I exist because I think that I exist. It's not really very sophisticated, but the deeper human intuition, not only of the inherent improbability of my own consciousness, however feeble and erratic a thing it might be, but the fact that there's others and that I can draw close to them. And that the true form of that closeness, through sidq, if I'm sincere and real with that person, bears fruit in love. So the stripping away of the nafs and the real rapprochement with another miraculous, unlikely center of consciousness in the world, which is another ruh, brings forth this amazing love. And it's the love of Allah, because He's the one who's created this other unlikely phenomenon of a human being who you can love. This idea of the Shahid is fundamental for Rumi. This is not a type of religion for solitaries. The Konya thing is collective. And one of the meanings of the Devran that the Mevlevi dervishes do is that it's not really for one dervish to go around. There have to be several. It's not just the dervish who's receiving the grace from heaven and distributing it to poor on earth, going around. There's a beautiful symbolism there, but they are together and they are in their Dawran conscious of each other. And the thing is not going to work if they're not conscious of each other. There'll be a collision pretty soon. And that's really Islam's vision of social relations and how it works. To the extent that we are true with each other and we perceive the miracle of Allah's creation of each other, society will work. Otherwise, well, if you have a really strong state that reads everybody's Gmail accounts, then you can make it work that way. And that's hard work. It's better to do it through love, trust, sincerity, overcoming the ego. And so powerful is that experience of really encountering the human other that it can produce these ecstatic sparks. And that's what was between Rumi and his friend Shams. Just a kind of amazing, delighted, mutual recognition of two souls that had perhaps been there at the day of Alastu bi Rabbikum, back again together. What could be more wonderful than that? What about the only nice thing that you can do at an airport? Some of the most horrible places, they get more and more horrible. If you've come here from a new airport, you'll know that if you're late for your flight, you still have to go on that curved path through the duty-free and then the Harrods outlets, and then, my God, it's an obstacle course, horrible. Consumerism kind of, you can't escape it. But the nice thing is at the other end, at the arrivals, where you see long lost families coming together and people losing themselves out of love and embracing, and that's a beautiful thing. You can be spiritually fresh by looking at that. And that's one of the things, this uns between human beings is one of the things that Rumi, Tasawwuf generally, are interested in. And this ta'lif al-qulub, which of course is the way of the Sahaba. How did they achieve what they achieved? Because they were true with each other. So that was the alchemy, that friendship, that precious thing that makes life worth living, the person to whom you can unburden yourself. That is what makes Rumi possible. And when that friendship happens, suddenly the floodgates open and this tsunami begins, and that's why we're here, and the Islamic world is sustained in its best aspects by that. From that friendship. And the believer who does not just see some mysterious concatenation of neurons in a genetically adapted organism that has a certain Durkheimian interest in not killing me, which is the modern definition of what friendship might be, essentially. But instead, the miracle of two created but eternal souls, points of light in an otherwise dark universe, kind of coming into connection. That's why love, محبه, so important. And in the Holy Prophet ﷺ, we see it with the relation with women, and this is part of the beauty of Islam. One of the things that Islam is breaking up is an older Christian idea of the monk, the solitary, the one who might have spiritual companions, but real human closeness. It's not really about that, being in your cell. And one of the things I want to do, inshallah, if we have time in the next few days, is to look at some of the ways in which Rumi figures the male-female relationality. And to see how he takes it way beyond modern sentimental nonsense about romance. You get into a romantic situation and you kick leaves together in the autumn, and it's just like one of those soppy episodes of Friends, and then 7 years later there's the nasty divorce and you try again. The modern thing, because that's just the nafs. But the deeper thing, the miraculous interlocking of the immortal spirits, which in its male-female thing is something that's characteristically articulated in the religion. One of the key themes in the Mathnavi of Rumi is the way in which that works. And I want to look in particular, inshallah, at the love and friendship between the Holy Prophet and Aisha, radiallahu anha, which is one thing that Rumi likes to talk about a lot. And then the very different relationship between Fir'aun and Asiya. It's like the opposite. And he uses those two oppositions of how the male-female thing can be exquisite, how the male-female thing can be calamitous, but how the righteous person, in this case the righteous woman, can still make so much out of it. So inshallah, that's what we'll be looking at. And inshallah, as we are in this city, we will recall that extraordinary time and look beyond the sort of traffic and the concrete and what it now has to be. And remember that still today in the city there are still very, very many thousands of luminous hearts who are here because of that time and who are sustained in their lives by this literature and by that incredible lasting impact of that friendship, more powerful than anything that a sultan could have done, which is still bringing people to this day to visit Maulana Rumi. Barakallahu fikum wal afu minkum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.